New Zealand's public transport system already has enough problems, delays and breakdowns, or the occasional crackhead asking you to give a dollar. But when one Auckland driver added a deceptively simple scam into the mix, little did he know the whole operation was about to go badly off route. This documentary aims to present an honest and unfiltered account of the case surrounding the former Auckland taxi and bus driver behind a deceptively simple bus fare scam. Loganathan Manikum Pillay. Loganathan Manikum Pillay, also known simply as Logan Pillay, had spent most of his working life behind the wheel of a commercial vehicle. Born around 1958 or 1959, the 67-year-old Epsom resident grew up in difficult circumstances in South Africa before eventually establishing a life in New Zealand. Over the years, he drove taxis for passengers with disabilities as well as the wider public, regularly working the notoriously volatile Friday and Saturday night shifts in central Auckland. As is an unfortunate reality for many drivers providing this kind of service, the job repeatedly exposed Pillay to violence and abuse. While working as a night shift taxi driver, he was punched in the head and face by a passenger, prompting him to install a CCTV camera on his dashboard for protection. By 2015, the then 57-year-old had transitioned into commercial bus driving, yet the violence would still follow him into this new role. In August of 2015, while operating a bus on Queen Street, Pillay picked up a passenger who refused to pay. He was punched in the jaw before the other passengers on board swiftly removed the attacker from the bus. Just 1 month after this jaw-punching incident, Pillay was driving the 717 Metrolink through slow-moving traffic in East Auckland. A large passenger demanded to be let off between bus stops. Much like the previous incident, the confrontation quickly turned violent. When Pillay tried to explain he can only stop at a designated bus stop, the man suddenly struck him in the left side of the face. The force of the punch caused the driver's foot to slip from the brake, sending Pillay lurching forward and crashing into the vehicle ahead. Both of these incidents were documented at the time by major New Zealand media outlets, including the New Zealand Herald and Stuff. In those reports, Pillay was presented to the public as a hard-working driver who had become the victim of violence simply while doing his job, with the repeated assaults eventually requiring him to receive targeted therapy for workplace trauma. Yet despite these encounters, he continued earning his living on the road, and by 2024, the now pensioner had been hired as a casual driver by Ritchies Transport, being assigned to one of only 4 buses operating the company's SkyDrive airport route. It was here, on this premium transit line, that the same driver once depicted publicly as a victim of workplace violence would transform into a prolific white-collar criminal scammer. The SkyDrive service operates as a direct transit link, carrying passengers between SkyCity, Auckland's central casino and entertainment complex, and Auckland Airport. For a flat adult cost of $20, customers are provided a seamless trip with the option to book tickets online, pay with cash, or use an EFTPOS machine as they embark on the bus. It was this very specific point of sale that Pillay identified as a lucrative vulnerability. Beginning in February 2025, Pillay concocted a scheme that was almost insultingly simple in its design. He went out and bought his very own personal EFTPOS machine, then formally registered the payment terminal under the trading name SkyDrive. To the average passenger boarding the bus at SkyCity or Auckland Airport, everything appeared entirely normal. They would tap their card on the terminal, see the SkyDrive name displayed on the screen, and take their seat. Little did they know that rather than being routed to Ritchies Transport, every payment went directly into Pillay's personal bank account. Their $20 fare had bypassed the transport company entirely and landed straight in the driver's pocket. Because Pillay was operating such a high-volume route, the steady stream of travelers provided a constant flow of fraudulent revenue. The scheme was so successful that he repeated these transactions more than 11,500 times over an 8-month period. But despite the influx of stolen cash, his lifestyle did not reflect that of a criminal mastermind hoarding illicit wealth. Instead, the money was being funneled directly into a destructive cycle. The irony was profound. He had used a bus route originating at SkyCity to steal money, only to walk straight back into the very same entertainment complex and gamble it all away. By the time the scheme ended, Pillay had siphoned and squandered nearly $250,000 in passenger fares from Ritchies Transport, an astonishing total of $243,000. Most would assume that, for a corporate entity the size of Ritchies Transport, a financial hemorrhage of nearly $250,000 would have triggered immediate internal alarms. Yet the fraud was not exposed by a rigorous audit, nor was it caught by management overseeing the route's daily revenue. Instead, the entire scheme came crashing down because of a single, everyday customer complaint. A passenger who had utilized the SkyDrive service contacted Ritchies regarding an overcharge on their account. When administrative staff at the transport company attempted to investigate the issue, they were entirely unable to find any record of the transaction in their systems. To resolve the discrepancy, the customer provided Ritchies with a copy of their receipt, Printed on that receipt was a specific terminal number, and following an internal investigation, Ritchies successfully traced that rogue terminal number directly back to none other than their casual driver, Mr. Logan Pillay. When finally confronted by his employer, Pillay did not attempt to mount a complex defense, and plainly admitted that he knew what the meeting was going to be about. The confession was swift, finally bringing his 8-month scam spree to a sudden, immediate end. Following the confession and subsequent end of his employment with Ritchies, the 67-year-old pensioner found himself standing in the Auckland District Court in July 2026. He pleaded guilty to a representative charge of obtaining by deception, a serious offence that carries a maximum penalty of up to 7 years in prison. Pillay appeared before Judge Kevin Glubb in what would be the judge's final day on the bench before his own retirement. During the sentencing hearing, the defence mounted a vigorous argument to keep the former driver out of a prison cell. Pillay's lawyer, Lincoln Burns, argued that his client's poor decision-making was intrinsically linked to mental health issues caused by the severe passenger assaults he had endured throughout his career. Burns went on to explain to the court that Pillay experienced a mental change and wasn't himself, describing the offending as part of a quote-unquote fractured personality. This fractured personality that he didn't recognize is the one that expressed itself, Burns stated. The lawyer pointed to his client's otherwise clean record and deep remorse for the crime. He also sought to emphasize that Pillay had not used the stolen funds to build some kind of luxury empire, delivering a memorable summation of where the money had gone. The fares, that should have ended up in the pockets of SkyDrive shareholders, have instead ended up in the pockets of SkyCity shareholders. In a bid to secure a non-custodial sentence, the defense sought a substantial 70% reduction. This included 10% for his letter of apology to Ritchies and willingness to meet with the company, 20% for his remorse and offer to pay reparations, 10% for his previous good character, 25% for his guilty plea, and a further 5% for his personal background, including growing up in difficult circumstances in South Africa and suffering repeated assaults while working in public transport. To support this, Burns proposed a restitution plan under which Pillay, who was now driving for Uber part-time to make ends meet, would pay $25,000 upfront from his Kiwi Saver account, followed by monthly payments of $2,000 to gradually reimburse the transport company he had scammed. However, Judge Glubb was unmoved by the financial proposal. The judge explicitly described the repayment offer as unrealistic and simply beyond belief. The judge also addressed the psychological arguments, noting that although Pillay had received therapy for workplace trauma, he had told the writer of his pre-sentence report that he did not have a gambling problem. That admission, combined with the fact that offending on such a large scale over such an extensive period did little to support the defense's attempt to portray his actions as the result of impaired judgment. The police proposed a starting point of 42 months, which Judge Glubb adopted, rejecting the defense's lower starting point of 39 months. He then applied a substantially lower combined discount of 35% to recognize Pillay's guilty plea, previous good character, and offer to pay reparations. And with that, the final decision was decisive. The proposed repayment plan failed to keep the former bus driver out of prison, and Loganathan Manikum Pillay was sentenced to 2 years and 3 months imprisonment. Because his sentence was just 3 months above the 2-year limit at which home detention could be considered, Pillay was sent directly to prison. In a final dry remark, Judge Glubb said that if Pillay still wished to clear his conscience by contacting Ritchies and establishing the proposed repayment plan, he should, by all means, do so. But this could occur after serving his prison sentence. While Ritchies Transport bore the immediate financial loss of $243,000, the consequences extended far beyond a single corporate balance sheet. In a similar case, more than $500,000 went missing from Go Wellington, which operated bus services across the city. The theft occurred over a 3-year period before a new debit card system exposed the discrepancy, resulting in 9 drivers losing their jobs. And in Christchurch, 2 former regional council clerks admitted stealing more than $82,000 from the Central Bus Exchange over a 20-month period. Although the methods differed, each case involved a common theme of large volumes of revenue moving through systems that failed to identify fraud until significant damage had already been done. That is especially concerning, given that the controls needed to expose such schemes were neither expensive nor technologically advanced, particularly for large, established companies, many of which hold government contracts. The SkyCity bus fare scam is a stark reminder that some of the most devastating corporate thefts don't always occur in boardrooms or behind expensive suits, nor do they require a sophisticated hacker operating from the shadows. Sometimes all it takes is an opportunistic employee and a portable card reader. For Mr. Loganathan Manikum Pillay, the aftermath marked a tragic end to a lengthy career on the road. The same driver, once interviewed by the media and publicly depicted as the victim of repeated workplace violence, would now be remembered for his role as a convicted fraudster, spending his later years inside a prison cell. What are your thoughts on the case of Mr. Pillay? Was 2 years and 3 months in prison a fair outcome when considering the scale of the fraud? And should Ritchies Transport shoulder some responsibility for allowing the unauthorized terminal to operate undetected for 8 months? Share your perspectives in the comments below. If you found this documentary informative, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more in-depth explorations of often overlooked, lesser-known stories. Who else would you like to see us detail next? Your engagement helps us continue to shed light on otherwise unheard narratives.